Okay, we got Ryan and we've got Emily who are on standby. Let's go ahead and bring them in, guys, oh, there it is. Look at them. Hey, guys, how are you?
Ryan, you look very relaxed.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm in Western Maryland in a cabin working on a book.
Oh, you look.
Don't dox yourself.
You look like it.
It's a good. That's a good
exactly.
place to withstand the World War III that we could be facing.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. I was like,
Ryan's in the best
suckers
position of all of us.
You got a bunker out there, Ryan? Maybe we'll come join you later.
Yeah, I'll send you the address.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Krystal.
So let me start with you, Emily, since you're, our right side of this panel. What do you think Trump's position is coming into this speech? What does he need to say? Who does he need to reassure? What do you think of his relative weakness, especially vis-a-vis Ron DeSantis?
Yeah, I was just trying to work this out in a story that I wrote tonight, because the math to me is, I think, where Trump has a real problem, in that you have some 3 out of 10 voters that support Trump more than they support the Republican Party. That's the hardcore Trump base. That's 3 out of 10 Republican voters. Now, when that is still, like, those voters are not going anywhere, but when you combine that with Donald Trump not being able to pluck off as many independents and even as many Democrats as he used to in the past, or people are just staying home, that makes the national path for Donald Trump really difficult, and it makes the statewide path for Trump-branded candidates really difficult. Now, where DeSantis comes in is that he can make that math work in Florida, is what we're seeing, that he's able to sort of combine the Trump base, which may be some previous Democrat voters, people who previously didn't vote Republican, independents that are willing to vote for someone like that. Ron DeSantis is doing that, and he's bringing in more minorities. So that's where you're getting people saying, clearly, the answer to this question is Ron DeSantis. How could Donald Trump even think about running again? But the last thing I'll say is before the sort of D.C. commentariat, especially on the right, tries to orchestrate this top-down coup against Trump in favor of DeSantis, they should be aware that there are still people out there. You're asking them to choose between Donald Trump and a regular traditional politician, and it's entirely rational if they say, screw you, I'm not trusting any normal politician. I've been screwed by the system for years. I've been screwed by the political system over and over again. So I'm going to take my chance with Donald Trump. I'd rather put my trust in Donald Trump, who says no to wars, says no to the political establishment, says no. And whether or not you think that argument's a good one, I personally disagree with it. It's a rational thing for people who have zero trust left in the system to do, and I think people on the right are underestimating the degree to which people will still make that calculus.
I completely agree with you, Emily. Ryan, to me, that's a central question. Does the GOP base care about electability when told by elites? What do you think in terms of, well, everything in the context before we get to the election or the announcement tonight?
I mean, I think they do and they don't, but it doesn't matter because they don't care what the elites say about electability. If you know what I mean. Like they do care, I think, about electability. And I think some of them thought, a lot of them thought that Trump could win in 2016. So it wasn't like they were just saying, like, screw this, we're going to throw this guy up just as an FU to the system and we're fine with Hillary Clinton becoming president. A lot of them thought, they'd been watching Trump on Celebrity Apprentice for years. They're like, this guy's great. Like, this guy can actually beat Hillary Clinton. So a lot of them never quite believed these electability arguments. And I think today they still believe the electability arguments, but it's cut by the doubt in whether or not elections are credible. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out long term in the Republican base, because you saw it in the Georgia runoffs 2 years ago, that turnout was depressed because Trump was telling everybody that voting doesn't work. And that, going back to that old famous slogan, that, if voting mattered, it would be illegal. If voting mattered, they wouldn't let you do it. Trump was really telling them, like, no, they're going to steal it. And so if coming out of this election, Kari Lake, goes hard on it and Trump goes hard on, stolen votes around the country, that could depress the number of people who come out. Because they might say, in a fair election, he would be electable, but they are not going to believe that it's going to be a fair election. So now you have to throw into the electability conversations questions over whether or not they even trust the elections, which then they're like, well, why am I even engaged in this? So I think it's a deep long-term problem for Republicans that they're going to need to figure out.
It's such a thorny one, and that's the thing I keep coming back to, Emily. I'm like, okay, in some different scenario, which I personally don't envision, where Ron DeSantis can somehow beat Trump in a head-to-head primary, like, does he just go away? Does he tell people not to vote? Like, the confounding variables there effectively put him either as a third party or as a spoiler in some way, which is undeniably going to have some impact. And so by holding him hostage, the GOP, as he did in 2016, he always made the case. He's like, look, you're stuck with me. It's very much like, you're stuck in this room with me, and if you try and kick me out, well, I'm not just going to take my ball and go home.
It's a nice
like,
party you got there.
Yeah, exactly.
Shame if something happened to it.
It certainly could. I mean, what do you think? You talk to probably more base people than I do, like people who think of some scenarios where Ron DeSantis could pull this off. What would their counter to somebody like me be?
So Ron DeSantis gave a statement today when he was asked about Donald Trump, where he responded and essentially turned the question around on the media and said, you know, the media has been going after me, but look at the points I've put up on the scoreboard. That's what I'm focused on. And he didn't really take the bait and didn't really engage with Trump, which is something we saw all of those candidates fail to do in 2015 and 2016. They all thought they could go head to head with them. And I'll admit, I thought some of them could have gone head to head if they'd been more aggressive too, but it didn't work. When we saw them try it, it didn't work. So I think what it comes down to is whether there are enough. There are a lot of Republicans and Republican-leaning voters that are very sick of Donald Trump. They are exhausted. These are persuadable voters in districts like Virginia 7 that are persuadable people that if you put up a so-called normie Republican, I think they can still sort of talk the populist talk, even if they don't walk the walk, and be electable. That said, Ron DeSantis is good proof of that. So are there enough people that in a Republican primary are so done with the Trump show that they will actually vote for Ron DeSantis? I think that's a really tough question in the primary, because if you remember, most Republican voters in 2015 and 2016 rejected Trumpism. They rejected Donald Trump. Most people voted against Donald Trump. But when you have a field that's that split and Trump's base that is that hardcore, 30% of Republican primary voters, someone is going to have to get over that 30% threshold, which could, could gain or lose a little bit depending on how the primaries go. Good luck.
Well, here's the other thing, Emily, that I have had trouble envisioning is, it's fine for Ron DeSantis took his little jab there, which, by the way, he may not have felt like he was going right up against Trump, but I can promise you Donald Trump took that as a full assault, direct attack on to him. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, like, eventually, if you're going to dethrone Trump, you are going to have to go up against him. It's not going to be enough to just sit back and hope this all just falls into your lap. It's not going to work that way. So what is the direct case that you think Ron DeSantis makes against Donald Trump? Imagine they're on the debate stage, up against each other. They're both making their pitch to the American people, taking shots at each other. What is DeSantis's critique of why the Republican base should cast aside this guy that they still continue to really like, who won the presidency before, who delivered them things that they thought were important and valuable, who continues to own and trigger the libs in all ways that delight them? What is your critique of why they should give up on Trump and go with you?
I think he'll go with two really specific things if it ever gets to that. It would be tax cuts and COVID. And he may even throw in there the sort of administrative state that Trump never did anything with Schedule F. But I think it would be a huge attack on, Ron DeSantis would say, I saw the writing on the wall earlier. I'm a leader. I took actions earlier than Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump was enabling Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins. I was taking different steps in Florida. And he would say, Donald Trump had all the political capital in the world. He had 2 houses of Congress and the presidency, and he spent all of his political capital on tax cuts. I do think that's powerful, but the question is whether Ron DeSantis is willing to veer into that lane of clear economic populism, because folks at AEI right now are saying, listen, this election was a resounding defeat for economic populism, which is a bad take because look where Fetterman won. Look where Tim Ryan overperformed.
I obviously agree with you on that, and I did a whole thing on Fetterman as kind of a model for Democrats. But I mean, look at who's looking to pony up cash for Ron DeSantis. You got Club for Growth in for him. You got Ken Griffin. I mean, these are not people who are going to be like, "Gosh, I really hated those tax cuts. That was terrible. I can't believe Trump did the tax cuts." So,
but the voters would. I think it's a powerful message with voters, and I totally agree
but he's going to have to answer to his donors ultimately.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was thinking of your Lever News piece actually exactly. I think it explained the dynamic when it came to economic populism. And then there's the question, is Ron DeSantis willing to be that much different from Dr. Oz? Is he? Because that's an open question.
That's such a great point. You know, Ryan, what do you make in terms of the dynamic, having covered this? Also, I'm curious for what you think the Democratic machine's reaction to all of this is. Are they ecstatic about the Trump announcement tonight, especially ahead of Georgia? If we zoom out from the GOP primary and to the meta kind of political effect of all this, what are some of the ripples that this is going to cause going forward over the next 2 years?
They're a little bit reluctant to be too publicly celebratory about it because they remember being celebratory in 2016 and being so excited that because they had helped they had Pied Pipered Trump to the nomination, as Hillary Clinton's team put it, that now they were going to just coast through the general election. Like they remember that wasn't that long ago, yet they still feel the same way. And there is some justification to that feeling, and I think that Trump's success is actually the thing that is making it more difficult for him to have success this time. In other words, in 2016, it wasn't just that he brought out a whole bunch of new voters to politics that hadn't been participating before. It was also that Democrats were demobilized and disengaged, and Hillary Clinton did not bring them out. That's the thing that allowed him to win by tens of thousands of votes in a couple of different states. And Trump's own success, coupled with Trump's kind of behavior and Trump's character and who Trump is as president, changed that calculation fundamentally. Like probably for the rest of our lives, we're not going to have a situation where Democrats are not engaged in an election. Like at least as long as Trump is alive, they're going to be involved. And so that's why in 2020, Trump again increased turnout, brought more voters who hadn't come out in 2016. He brought them out again in 2020. But Democrats brought out even more because they're so angry at Trump. And in order for either DeSantis to beat Trump or for Trump to beat DeSantis in a primary, they're going to have to be doing all sorts of things that are riling up people on MSNBC every single day. And so if DeSantis does beat Trump in the primary, to Democratic voters, he will be as hostile a figure to them as Trump because he will have had to kind of out-Trump Trump on the way to the nomination. And so that means they're going to have to find even more voters who didn't come out in 2020 because Democrats are going to continue to find young people and other people who are infuriated at the MAGA Republicans, and it's going to make it so that Trump isn't going to be able to kind of sleepwalk his way into the White House again. That's
right.
over. Like you get one shot at that.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.